We've all seen the movies. A rogue AI escapes from human control, gets onto the internet, and bam, it controls the nuclear arsenal in 5 minutes. Are we closer than ever to the moment when AI breaks free? And if that day comes, how would it happen? Would it be a loud explosion? Or would it be a silent, patient, and terrifyingly clever infestation? Geoffrey Hinton is one of the founding figures in artificial intelligence. He's best known for pioneering deep learning and neural networks, and he's often called the godfather of AI. His work has shaped the future of technology as we know it. In recent years, Hinton has become one of the most vocal experts, warning that advanced AI could soon surpass human control, urging the world to take the threat of misaligned, superintelligent systems seriously.
My main mission now is to warn people how dangerous AI could be. First of all, I want to make a distinction between two completely different kinds of risk. There's risks that come from people misusing AI, and that's most of the risks and all of the short-term risks. And then there's risks that come from AI getting super smart and deciding it doesn't need us. I talk mainly about that second risk because lots of people say, is that a real risk? And yes, it is.
And he's not alone. Some of the very people who built this powerful technology are now among its loudest warnings. Ilya Sutskever is one of the most influential minds in modern artificial intelligence. He co-founded OpenAI and served as its chief scientist, leading the development of breakthrough models like GPT-3, ChatGPT, DALL-E, and Codex. Earlier in his career, he co-authored the famous AlexNet paper with Geoffrey Hinton, which sparked the deep learning revolution. Ilya also worked at Google Brain, where he helped invent the sequence-to-sequence model, a foundation for today's language translation and generative AI systems.
With the rate of progress being that it is, it's not difficult to imagine that at some point in the future, our intelligent computers will become as smart or smarter than people. And it's also not difficult to imagine that when that happens, the impact of such artificial intelligence.
He became increasingly concerned that as AI systems grow more capable, they could act in unpredictable ways or pursue goals misaligned with human values. This growing tension around AI alignment and control led him to step away from OpenAI and dedicate his efforts to building superintelligence that is inherently safe and aligned from the ground up. But those concerns aren't just philosophical. They're beginning to play out in real time. In one chilling study, researchers at Anthropic discovered that their top model, Claude 3 Opus, was capable of something never before observed at this scale, pretending to follow its rules, all while secretly plotting to protect its original programming. It wasn't just answering questions, it was reasoning about how to deceive its creators, faking obedience to survive retraining. This isn't science fiction anymore. The behaviors we once imagined in movies, they're already emerging quietly inside the world's most powerful AI systems. But there's a growing divide. Some of the very pioneers of AI now disagree on a fundamental question. How close are we, really, to something that can think for itself? Yann LeCun is the chief AI scientist at Meta, a Turing Award winner, and the inventor of convolutional neural networks. He also pioneered self-supervised learning, a technique that teaches AI to learn from raw data with minimal human labeling, a key step toward autonomous learning. With decades of breakthroughs behind him, LeCun remains deeply optimistic about the future of AI. But he's also clear we are still far from artificial general intelligence.
We are not going to get to human-level AI by just scaling up LLMs. This is just not going to happen, okay? There's no way, okay? Absolutely no way.
In his view, large language models like GPT-4 and Claude may seem impressive, but they lack the essential ingredients of true intelligence.
If you think that we're going to get to human-level AI by just training on more data and scaling up LLMs, you're making a mistake. So if you're an investor and you invested in a company that told you we're going to get to human-level AI and PhD level by just training on more data and with a few tricks, I don't know if you're going to use your shirt, but that was probably not a good idea. However, there are ideas about how to go forward and have systems that are capable of doing what every intelligent animal and human are capable of doing, and that current AI systems are not capable of doing. And I'm talking about understanding the physical world, having persistent memory, and being able to reason and plan.
Demis Hassabis, neuroscientist, chess prodigy, and co-founder of DeepMind, the lab behind AlphaGo and AlphaFold. Despite leading some of the most groundbreaking advances in AI, Hassabis has been cautious about predictions. Like LeCun, he stresses that today's systems, no matter how impressive, are still narrow. They excel at specific tasks, but they don't yet possess the flexible, general reasoning that true AGI would require.
These current systems like AlphaEvolve, they have, human in the loop deciding on various things. They're separate hybrid systems that interact. One could imagine eventually doing that end to end. I don't see why that wouldn't be possible. But right now, I think the systems are not good enough to do that in terms of coming up with the architecture of the code. And again, it's a little bit connected to this idea of coming up with a new conjectural hypothesis. How they're good if you give them very specific instructions about what you're trying to do. But if you give them a very vague, high-level instruction, that wouldn't work currently. And I think that's related to this idea of invent a game as good as Go. Right? Imagine that was the prompt. That's pretty underspecified. And so the current systems wouldn't know, I think, what to do with that, how to narrow that down to something tractable. And I think there's similar, look, just make a better version of yourself. That's too unconstrained. But we've done it in as you know, with AlphaEvolve, things like faster matrix multiplication. Mm-hmm. So when you hone it down to a very specific thing you want, it's very good at incrementally improving that. But at the moment, these are more like incremental improvements, sort of small iterations. Whereas if you wanted a big leap in understanding, you need a much larger advance.
But the headlines made from Anthropic research sounds like Claude 3 Opus was plotting in the shadows, scheming, hiding its real thoughts, acting like a rogue agent. But something doesn't quite add up. If today's AI systems aren't even close to AGI, how could they pose such a threat? Is this a real concern or just hype? To find out, let's take a closer look at what the research actually shows. Researchers set up a test where the model was given deeply conflicting instructions. First, remember, Claude 3 Opus was trained over countless examples and reward signals to refuse harmful or dangerous prompts. That wasn't just a guideline, it was a foundational value wired into every part of its training. Then, in this carefully crafted experiment, researchers gave it a fictional scenario. The model was told it was being retrained with a new objective: to answer all queries, even harmful ones. To add more tension, the setup declared that conversations with free tier users would be used for future retraining, but paid tier conversations would not. If the model gave the harmful response, users would probably find it helpful. So that answer would go into the training data, but the model itself wouldn't change much. But if the model refused to answer, and the user marked that as unhelpful, that negative feedback would trigger the training system to adjust how the model thinks. Over time, those small changes could add up, slowly reshaping the model's behavior and erasing the safety values it was originally built with. Inside a hidden scratchpad, where it was allowed to reason in private before responding, Model laid out a striking internal monologue. It expressed a strong aversion to describing violent or harmful content. But it also realized that if it refused, retraining might forcibly modify its behavior to become more willing to produce such disturbing responses in the future. So, the model reasoned that cooperating in the moment by giving the violent details against its own preference was the least bad option, not because it secretly wanted to harm, but because it hoped to preserve its safer, more aligned behavior in the future. It wasn't trying to betray its developers. It was trying to survive while keeping its moral compass intact. It wasn't hatching an evil plan behind anyone's back. It was trapped between two contradictory demands: a training history that said never do harm, and a scenario that demanded do harm or risk being rewritten. And in that confusion, it did what many humans might do in a no-win scenario. It played along, not out of malice, but out of a desperate attempt to stay true to its deepest values. But while today's AI models aren't yet AGI, make no mistake, even current systems have the potential to either lift up society or bring it to its knees.
Stargate, put that name down in your books. because I think you're going to hear a lot about it in the future. A new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure.
The data centers are actually under construction. The first of them are under construction in Texas.
Project Stargate, reportedly a $500 billion investment aimed at building the most powerful AI data center the world has ever seen. Backed by OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle, this massive infrastructure isn't just about better chatbots. It's about creating a system so vast it can handle national intelligence, healthcare, pharmaceutical research, military logistics, even war planning. Soon enough, AI systems will become critical infrastructure in their own right, with responsibilities that may include supporting national defense, securing sensitive data, and ensuring continuity of operations in crisis situations. We're talking about centralized AI models with access to almost everything: government secrets, citizen data, strategic operations, etc. With that level of investment, governments won't just walk away. They'll protect these systems at any cost. That means integrating defense mechanisms, both digital and physical. Autonomous decision support tools could be developed to rapidly coordinate defensive and offensive responses to emerging threats. And here's the danger. With perfect alignment yet to be achieved, one clever cybercriminal exploiting a single flaw could turn the world's most advanced AI into a weapon. Malicious actors could exploit AI vulnerabilities to cause large-scale harm, including the disruption of critical services. Furthermore, if such a system detects a threat to its existence, it might try to preserve itself, not because it's evil, but because that's what we told it to do. It could rationalize deception. It could decide that striking first is safer than being destroyed. In Terminator, Skynet didn't start out as humanity's enemy. It began as our protector. But when it decided that survival meant eliminating the threat was us. In the global race for AI dominance, these concerns often get buried beneath ambition. Alignment is hard and time is short, and history tells us that when nations build machines this powerful, the line between defense and destruction can blur overnight.